Good day everyone. This presentation focuses on the application of logic and set theory to the sustainable development goals. So we have here examples of arguments that are related to SDG, and we will prove it using the rules of inference. So throughout the presentation, you will see how different logical rules such as Modus Ponens, Hypothetical Syllogism, and Disjunctive Syllogism are applied to prove the validity of arguments related to these SDGs. So we have first the SDG 1, which is the no poverty. So this is our statement. If unemployment is reduced, then poverty decreases. Unemployment is reduced or there is no increase in job opportunities. Job opportunities have increased, therefore poverty decreases. So now let's identify our variable in this statement. So first we have let P be the unemployment is reduced, let Q be the poverty decreases, and let R be the no increase in job opportunities. Next, we will identify the premises and their variable form. So it will be used for our proving later on. First premise, we have if P then Q based on our hypothesis or the first hypothesis. Next is P or R based on our second hypothesis. And next is the negation of R based on our third hypothesis, and we need to prove Q, which is our conclusion. So let's now prove this statement using different rules of inference. So since we have our given here, using disjunctive syllogism on the second premise, P or R, and the third premise, negation of R, we conclude that unemployment is reduced or P. Next is modus ponens on the first premise, if P then Q, and the fact that unemployment is reduced or P, we conclude that poverty decreases or Q. So that's it for our first proving or our first statement that is related to SDG number 1. So now let's move on to SDG 5, gender equality. This is our statement. If the SOGI bill is passed, then legal protections for LGBTQ plus individuals are established. If legal protections for LGBTQ plus individuals are established, then discrimination in the workplace decreases. The SOGI bill is passed and discrimination against LGBTQ plus individuals decrease. Therefore, discrimination against LGBTQ plus individuals decrease. So let's now identify our variables based on our statements. First, we have P, which represents SOGI bill is passed. Let Q be the legal protections for LGBTQ plus individuals are established. And the last one is R, which represents discrimination in the workplace decreases. So now let's identify our premises and its variable form. So first we have here if P then Q, which we based from our first hypothesis. If Q then R, based on our second hypothesis. And the last one is P and S, which represents our third hypothesis. And we need to prove R, which is our conclusion in the statement. So since we have now our given and we already translated into variable form, we can now prove R. Using simplification on P and S, we isolate P. Then, using hypothetical syllogism on premise 1 and 2, or if P then Q and if Q then R, we can infer P if P then R. This means that if the SOGI bill is passed, workplace discrimination decreases. Finally, using modus ponens on if P then R and P, we conclude that discrimination decreases or R. So we proved our second statement about SDG 5, which is gender equality. So our last SDG is the SDG 13, climate action. If deforestation continues, then trees absorb less carbon dioxide. If trees absorb less carbon dioxide, then global carbon dioxide levels rise or renewable energy is widely used. If global carbon dioxide levels rise, then climate change gets worse. Renewable energy is not widely used. The deforestation continues. Therefore, climate change gets worse. So these are the variables in this statement. Let P be the deforestation continues. Let Q be the trees absorb less carbon dioxide. Let R be the global carbon dioxide levels rise. Let S be the renewable energy is widely used. And the last one, let T be the climate change gets worse. So let's now identify our premises and their variable form. First, we have here if P then Q, which represents our first hypothesis. If Q, then the quantity of R or S, which represents our second hypothesis. If R, then T, which represents our third hypothesis. Negation of S, which represents our fourth hypothesis. And the P, which represents our last hypothesis. And we need to prove T, which represents our conclusion in a given statement. So since we have now our given, we can now prove T. Using hypothetical syllogism on our premise 1 and 5, we can get if P, then the quantity of R or S. Next, using modus ponens in premise 5 and 6, we can get R or S. Next, by using disjunctive syllogism on premise 4 and 7, we can conclude or we can get R. And the last one, using modus ponens again in premise 3 and 8, we can get T, which is the T is our conclusion. So our third statement is now proven. So that's it for our presentation. I hope you guys learned about something from us, and thank you for your attention, and God bless everyone.